Type 1. So in this lesson, we are going to have a look at the speaking test in Cambridge Book 14. Now, even if you're doing General IELTS or Academic IELTS, the speaking test is the same. So whichever component you're doing, you can watch the video because it's the same speaking test for everyone. Now, as you know, the speaking test runs in 3 parts. Part 1, Part 2 and Part 3. So, in Part 1, right, this part of the test begins with the examiner's introduction about him or herself and checking the candidate's identification. It then continues as an interview and the examiner asks the candidate about him or herself, his or her work or studies and other familiar topics. So usually part 1 runs for about 4 to 5 minutes. So let's talk about future, right? What job would you like to have 10 years from now? Me, I would definitely love to have a job but not do anything but be a housewife and just enjoy my time at home and do a bit of cooking, cleaning, growing veggie and fruit in the garden, things like that. How useful will English be for your future? I think it would be very useful because English is a global language and everyone communicates in English nowadays, and if we were to settle in an English-speaking country, English would be quite important. How much traveling do you hope to do in the future? A lot. Because I'm waiting till my kids grow up a bit to do a bit of traveling, because I used to be a great traveler when I was young. But with the little ones, I've got certain restraints. I can't really travel as I used to, so I would love to go back and do the same hobby as I did a few years ago. How do you think your life will change in the future? Well, I think it will be less stressful and I would have more time for myself in the future. So it would change definitely. So part 2, now in part 2, you will have to talk for 1 to 2 minutes about this specific card or topic that they give you. You will have 1 minute to prepare yourself and you can make some notes to help you if you wish. At the end of your preparation time, the examiner would tell you, all right, remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please? Right? So try to speak close upon 2 minutes and try to cover all these points that they give you. Describe a book that you enjoyed reading because you had to think a lot. You must say what this book was, why you decided to read it, what reading this book made you think about, and explain why you enjoyed reading this book. Right? So, talking about a book that I enjoyed reading because it had a lot to think would be this book called Nirvana, right? So this book was all about having a good spiritual, being spiritual in terms of mentally and being physically as well, being healthy, right? So it actually gave us tips how to be calm in life, how to be stress-free in life, how we should think about life in a more positive manner. And why I decided to read this book was because I felt I was a very busy and stressed out person. So I wanted a bit of peace into my mind. So I felt reading this book would be really good, and it was recommended by one of my friends. Now, what reading this book made me think about was that some things we do in life, it's not so important. We stress on all the little things that sometimes it's not so important. And, we run behind money, we run behind fame, we run behind everything that we want to build a big house, to get a big car. But in the end, you're left with nothing. You take nothing with you when you leave this world. So I enjoyed reading this book because I actually felt, yes, why are we doing all of these things? Why do we run? Why do we want a big car? Why do we want a big house? Why do we want to be so rich? But it doesn't mean that, people are obviously going to stop. But it gave me a good insight, and I felt really happy that I read that specific book. Right? Okay, so you can pick and choose any book that you thought was good, right? And in part 3, we're going to talk about children and reading and electronic books. All right, so let's have a look at the questions. Children and reading, right? What are the most popular types of children's books in your country? I think it's the normal stories like the Ladybird books, which are really popular. And that series is really popular. And then Peppa Pig is also quite a popular series in Sri Lanka. What are the benefits of parents reading books to their children? One thing is it improves their vocabulary. If you read out aloud, it improves their pronunciation. It also gives you some quality time with your kids. So that is also another benefit. Should parents always let children choose the books they read? I think as they grow older, it's good that they choose because it's something that they want to do. They pick the book, so they'll definitely read it. But from a small age, if you give them a variety, you have to read about space, about animals, about insects, about, detective stories, about good deeds. If you give them that exposure, then naturally when they grow up, they'll pick and choose different topics to read. And I think that is good. Talking about electronic books, how popular are electronic books in your country? I think electronic books are very popular among the younger generation, but the older generation in Sri Lanka tend to still not use e-books as the younger generation. What are the advantages of parents reading electronic books? I think you can always kind of go back and read it over and over again. Also in ebooks, you don't have to sometimes read it. They have the e-version and they have it automatically being played. So you don't have to read it, but the author or the website will have someone reading it out with the proper pronunciation. So that could also be another advantage. Will electronic books ever completely replace printed books in the future? I really don't think so, because some people really need the touch feel to read. I'm one of those people as well. So I think it would never replace it completely. Right, moving on into test 2. So as you know, there are 3 parts. So in part 1, the test begins with the examiner introducing him or herself and checking the candidate's identification. Then it continues as an interview where they ask you about familiar topics. So we're going to have a look at social media. Which social media websites do you use? So I mostly use Facebook only at the moment. And why? Because I don't know, I don't have a time a lot for, all these social media websites, but I know Instagram is more happening nowadays. How much time do you spend on social media sites? I would say probably about half an hour. Sometimes because students ask me questions and, they ask me queries or they ask me certain things, I spend a bit more time, probably about 1 hour to 1.5 hours, but definitely nothing more than that. What kind of information about yourself have you put on social media? Well, it's about mostly teaching. I try to avoid putting a lot of personal information because social media sets blueprints and it defines who you are. So I really try to avoid putting things about my family or, places that I visit or anything personal about myself, but obviously, friends tag me or, something really nice that I want to share. I will put it up, but mostly it's about, teaching. that I would post. But my personal, that's my page obviously, but the personal profile would have close friends only, and there sometimes we post a few personal stuff, but that was very rare, I would say. Is there anything you don't like about social media? Yes, I don't like social media because I see that as a factor that, encourages us to waste a lot of time. And people try to put a lot of things on social media when it's not really the truth. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but sometimes you have a miserable life and you keep on posting, oh, I'm going here, oh, I'm eating that, okay? Whereas deep down inside you, that's not who you are. So I kind of think social media is quite fake for a lot of people, but it depends on how you feel about it. So part 2, as you know, in this part, you will be given a specific card and you will have to talk 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to prepare yourself and you can make some notes if you wish. Now, all right, remember you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, right? So the examiner will tell you at the end. So don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please? Okay, so let's have a look at our topic. Describe something you liked very much, which you bought for your home, what you bought, when and where you bought it, why you chose this particular thing, and explain why you liked it so much. Okay, so I'd like to describe something that I liked very much, which I bought for my home. And this is a flower arrangement. I bought this about 3 years ago from this place called Green Gardens, right? And they sell a lot of artificial flower arrangements, separate flowers, and they also sell the artificial grass and things. Why I chose this particular thing was because I moved into a new house and, the living room was quite big. So I wanted to keep a nice flower arrangement to make the space look nice and colorful. So I bought this particular flower arrangement, which didn't cost that too much, but at that time. But it was nice and colorful and it was kind of like a flat design, which I kind of liked. Why I liked it so much was among all the other decor, it was looking very classy, very colorful, and it was definitely value for money, and that's why I liked it very much. And I think I've liked it because a lot of my friends who walked in said, oh, this was a really nice arrangement, Sandhini, where did you get it from? So I really liked it. Okay, so moving on into part 3, we're going to talk about creating a nice home and different types of homes, right? Why do some people buy lots of things for their home? Because some people want to show their wealth, their prestige, their social status, and sometimes they want to make it look nice. Do you think it is very expensive to make a home look nice? Not really, it depends. I mean, if you're a very creative person and you can do a lot of artwork and things, you could do it with a less cost. But sometimes if you want to be very classy and you want to show social status, then you might have to spend a lot. Why don't some people care about how their home looks? Because they're not really interested in showing social status. Sometimes they might not have the capacity or the wealth to make it look nice. Sometimes they might be staying on rented property and they don't want to make their space look nice. Different types of homes. In what ways is living in a flat or apartment better than living in a house? So living in a flat or an apartment could mean that you have more security, less space to clear up, right? Because it's quite compact. You don't have big gardens, you don't waste a lot of time. It's nice and easy and comfortable because it's got less space. Do you think homes will look different in the future? Yes, I think in the past homes were having a lot of garden space, a lot of space in the house, but now I think houses are becoming more and more small because people are busy and they don't want to have a lot of space to clear up. So I think they will become smaller in size. Do you agree that the kinds of homes people prefer change as they get older? Yes. I think as people get older, they want to stay in more quieter areas with more garden space for them to relax and more greenery around them. Moving on into test 3. So you know that the test has 3 parts, part 1, part 2 and part 3. Right? So the examiner controls the entire time of your exam, and part 1 is usually an easy part where you have familiar topics and the examiner discusses these topics with you, right? So this part would run for about 4 to 5 minutes. Usually the examiner introduces him or herself and checks for the candidate's identification, and then the test goes on as an interview. Alright, so let's have a look at the topic. We're going to talk about neighbors, right? Right. How often do you see your neighbors? Oh, I see my neighbors every day, right? So we're quite friendly with each other, especially my next door neighbor right on my left-hand side, because all the others, it's like tall walls and I don't speak to them. But my left-hand side neighbor, I always talk to her. We actually meet every day. Sometimes we sit in the evening and even have a chit-chat. Do you invite your neighbors to your home? Yes. Sometimes we invite them for dinner, for lunch, for tea. So yes, we do. Do you think you're a good neighbor? Yes, I think so, because I'm quite helpful to my neighbor. I'm always there when she needs me, and her husband is usually away, so he's a seaman, so he's usually not at home. He's there probably about, once a year for about 3 months. So, we get along really well, and she's a really nice person. And, we're like two sisters, so we talk to each other, we share our feelings, we share food, we have a little chit-chat in the evening, sometimes we have a little tea party. So, yeah. I think I'm a good neighbor and I help her, I talk to her, and if she's not around, I take care of her place, I feed her pets, and I look out for her. Has a neighbor ever helped you? Yes, so my neighbor, this neighbor who I was talking about, she definitely helps me a lot and she's helped me in the past. Alright, so moving on, part 2. In this part of the talk, or rather in this part of the test, you will be given a written card on which the examiner will hand it over to you, right? And you will have to read it carefully and make sure you cover all these points, right? You will have to talk for 1 to 2 minutes and you have 1 minute to prepare yourself. You can make notes if you wish, right? At the end of your preparation time, the examiner will tell you, all right, remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please? Right? So, what's the topic? Describe a difficult task that you succeeded in doing as a part of your work. What the task you did, why this task was so difficult, how you worked on it, and explain how you felt when you had successfully completed this. Right, so talking about a difficult task that I succeeded, this was a part of my studies actually. And I had to make a lesson which was to teach special needs kids, right? Now, because we were teaching English, it was important that the special needs kids were also able to understand the lesson, right? And I was doing a young learner class and it was to teach them the body parts. So why this task was difficult is because I'd never done a special needs class before and I was really nervous. I wasn't sure which teaching strategies to use, which tools to use, and how could I get this across to them. And how I worked on this task was I first observed the class because there were other teachers teaching this same class. So one day I walked in and I observed them closely, and I felt that, the special needs were that they could hear well, right? But some of them couldn't talk, and some of them couldn't actually, they were slow learners, etc. So I was happy because all of them could hear. Then I could probably use material to kind of, help them, but the kinesthetic learning would have been better. So I worked on this in the sense I gave them matching activities. So I taught them first the words, and then I gave them a matching activity. So the words were on this side and the parts of the body were on this side. So they had to quickly come running to the board and match it, right? And then I did slap the board, right? So I used to say the word and they used to slap it, okay? And then I used to have the parts of the body and I tell the word and they used to slap the part of the body. And then we obviously did head, shoulders, knees and toes because they were happy and they were enjoying it with the activities. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. So they were kind of really into it. And I did the one which was going up with the speed, was head, shoulders, toes at the end, and they were just screaming and running around, right? So I was really happy at the end of the lesson because it was an observed lesson, and we usually have tutors coming in to observe us and give us a grading on our lesson, okay? So how I felt about it, I was really happy. It was really successful, and they were all thrilled at the end of the lesson. They were like, because some of them couldn't talk expressions, right? And that was what made me feel really happy. I wasn't such a, I'm not a fan of teaching young learners before, but after this lesson, I was really amazed of how much difference I could make. And I was really happy, I could say. And it was a successful lesson because I got a positive comment and actually one of the highest gradings I've got during my entire teaching practice as well. Right, so moving on into part 3, we're going to talk about difficult jobs and personal and career success. What are the most difficult jobs that people do? I think being a pilot is difficult. Being a doctor is difficult. Being a laborer can be difficult because they require a lot of skill involved in it. Why do you think some people choose to do difficult jobs? Because they're good at it and they're passionate about it. So that's why I think they take up these difficult jobs. Do you agree or disagree that all jobs are difficult sometimes? I agree. All jobs can be really difficult and can be quite demanding at certain times. Let's talk about personal and career success. How important is it for everyone to have a good goal in their personal life? I think it's quite important. Goals keep you going, and once you have a goal in your life, right, you go behind it and you really want to make sure you achieve it. So that keeps you alive, that keeps you focused. So I think it's important. Is it always necessary to work hard in order to achieve career success? I think yes. You really have to work hard to achieve good results and to get a better place in your career. Do you think that successful people are always happy people? No, I don't think so. I think some successful people are really unhappy in their life and they don't show it. But sometimes they even commit suicide at the end because they can't handle that pressure. So I don't think so. So as I want to tell you, we are moving into test 4, right? Now all the answers that I have given you, then part 3 wage, right? Samani part 3 answer kak diga wenna one. So it should be like a body para. You give the idea, you explain about it, maybe an example, and you round off the idea. I'm not doing everything, right? I'm just giving you a guidance as to what kind of answers you could give, right? So, මොකද අපි මුල lessons වල I have done with you structured answers. So, you should know the pattern. In the books, what am I doing? Just giving you an insight, okay? So that you follow through the questions and you can come up with your own answers. So, don't for a second think, I can give just 2 sentences and finish off. No, you should nicely explain it and take your time, right? So test 4 also has 3 parts, part 1, part 2 and part 3. Let's have a look at neighborhood. Before we had a look at neighbors, now we are having a look at neighborhood, right? So what's the difference? Neighbors means people around you, just next door to you. Neighborhood is an entire area that you live in. Do you like the neighborhood you live in? Yes, it's quite a quiet, peaceful neighborhood and lots of people are educated, so I really like my neighborhood. What do you do in your neighborhood in your free time? Usually, during our free time, we don't really get together a lot. Sometimes, we sit outside and we talk to each other. Sometimes during special festive times, during Vesak, we have a dansala. During Poson, sometimes we go to the close by temple together and do the Bodhi Puja. So we do things like that, but not really on a day-to-day free basis. We don't do much. What new things would you like to have in your neighborhood? I definitely like to have a children's park in our neighborhood because it would be beneficial for all the children because everyone's inside their houses. They don't get any time to go out. There is like a ground, but there's really nothing in it. So probably having a few landslides, swings and activities would be nice. Would you like to live in another neighborhood in your town or city? No, not really. I love my neighborhood. The neighbors are nice and my parents live close by, so I wouldn't want to change it. Now, part 2, you will get a specific card. You will have to talk about the topic for 1 to 2 minutes. And you have a minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish, right? So at the end of the test, the examiner will tell you, all right, remember you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please? Now this one, I want you to do it on your own. Describe a website you have bought something from. What the website is, what you bought from the website, how satisfied you were with it and what you bought, right? And explain what you liked and disliked about using the website. So that is for you to do it on your own, right? Now let's have a look at part 3, shopping online and online retail businesses. So looking at shopping online, what kinds of things do people in your country often buy from online shops? Well, people often buy clothes, grocery items, shoes from online stores, usually in Sri Lanka. Why has online shopping become so popular in many countries? I think because it's quite easy. It saves a lot of time, less hassle, and when COVID came through, I think a lot of people couldn't go into the shop, so that also encouraged people to do more and more online shopping. What are some possible disadvantages of buying things from online shops? Sometimes you get the wrong product delivered. Sometimes it's not the same quality. Sometimes they show something but they send you something completely different. And refunds can be quite tedious. So, and then if it's not really a good website and you've ordered things, or sometimes it could even be bogus websites and you wasted your money. Talking about online retail businesses, do you agree that the prices of all goods should be lower on internet shopping sites than shops? I don't really think so. If they're branded things, regardless if they're in a shop or in a retail shop or, online, the price is going to be the same. So I don't really think it should be less for all goods. Will large shopping malls continue to be popular despite the growth of internet shopping? Yes, I think so. People love to go out into shopping malls, spend their time, look around a bit, window shopping. So I think, yes, it is still popular, but it will not, completely die out. The last question for today, do you think that some businesses, example, banks and travel agents, will only operate online in the future? I don't think banks could completely operate online, but yes, travel agents could definitely operate online completely. Depending on the nature of the business, it could differ. Right, so having a look at what we have done today, we've had a look at online shopping, online retail business, right? We've also looked at the neighborhood, and we were looking at career, success, difficult jobs, right? And neighbors. Then we were having a look at types of homes and, living in different types of homes. We were also having a look at social media and how people spend their time. We were having a look at ebooks, children and books, right? And we're looking at traveling. So I think we've covered a lot of topics. So we've had a look at looking at test 1, 2, 3 and 4 from Cambridge Book 14.